well. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Priya Sharma Sheikh, your host for the evening. I'm a leadership and life transformation coach myself and accredited as a PCC by the ICF, and I'm also an NLP and Enneagram practitioner. I serve on the ICF Mumbai board as its secretary, and I'm also part of the marketing and communications team and the learning management team, which has put this event together for you today. So coming to the context of this webinar. So we are living through a period of crisis with the coronavirus. The pandemic is all around us. Suddenly, the new normal is sitting at home, working from home. The new normal is having the family around you all the time, right? So such a black swan event that has impacted not only our personal lives, but our professional lives and the world at large, all right? It brings up a crisis point in our life. Which shows us that how we can relate to uncertainty. It also gives us this opportunity to discover it. And without asking our permission, this has just landed upon us, without us even wanting it, without expecting it or anything. There are lots of memes out there saying that this one predicted it, this book said it, this author wrote about it, but yet none of us expected it. And here we are battling it with everyone else. So this particular session, we are hoping in this webinar to create, it's titled, Creating a New Future Beyond Black Swan Events. So our facilitator, Elena Espinal, who is already there with us, this beautiful lady, will share examples of how we can respond to such events, change mindsets, and create new futures, applying the principles of spiral dynamics. So in this moment of crisis, we do have the possibility, she believes, of maturing in our conscience and in the complexity of our culture, or instead go back to more primitive responses. Elena is no doubt, as you all perhaps would have read her profile, an MCC. She's also a PhD, and she has worked with Fortune 500 companies, government, and NGOs with outstanding results for her clients. I'm not going to get into too many details, but she has over 25 years of corporate experience, and she's been a coach for several years now. Another interesting fact about Elena is that she is a grandmother, and she has 5 grandchildren already, and a 6th is on its way. And her granddaughter is with us on this webinar. She is right now muted and video is shut, but not her granddaughter, her daughter-in-law and her son are both on this webinar, and we are happy to have them with us. So Elena, without wasting any more time, I would like to welcome you to start the session. Over to you, and looking forward to the learning from you, dear.
Thank you very much for that marvelous presentation. And I want to ask something to all the ones that are here, and ask that any question that you have, something that you couldn't understand or you want some more light on that, or something to discuss, please write Priya, and I ask Priya to interrupt me, and we will go all together, point by point, trying to understand this position that I think is our work as coaches. Because as coaches, we ask questions, but all the questions we ask to a client come from the way we can see the world, the way we observe the world. And there's a very beautiful and very deep theory about culture that is spiral dynamics. And I think this moment that we are living is absolutely a great example to see how we can jump and progress as human beings in this world, as human beings that respect the world, the nature, the universe, and we feel part of it. Let's begin this conversation with what is that we do when we ask those questions to our clients. The principal reason that coaching exists is for creating future. We are not specialized in solving problems. People come to us to create a new world, a new vision, to do what they never have done, to change in some way the paradigm, the way they see the world. And for that, we try to place them through our questions in a place of power, in a place where they can take the best decisions, where they can see more, distinct more in that word. And I think that is very important, because we always think that crisis occurs outside. And outside there's no crisis. This is something that happens. This is a circumstance. And as a circumstance, we can't choose circumstances. But we have said that the gift of life is that we have freedom always to choose. So how can we choose if the circumstance is imposing something to us? Well, that's the game of life. The game of life is time for us as a gift. We don't know how much time we will be here. And the second thing is, the rules can change in any moment. And that's what happened today. Circumstances changed. And we call that crisis. But that change happens, and really what it is that what we know and the rules that we are using to play the game have changed. That's the thing. So we can get into a mood of complaining and saying, well, I prefer the time that was before. I don't know how to respond to this. Or we can begin to think, how is the game today? How can we win this game today? What do we have to learn through this? So we are changing our relationship with what is happening. And when we get into a powerful relationship with what is happening, we have the opportunity to learn and to win. So in our perception of the world, we are changing our mindset, and we are having a reshaping of the world that we see. So do you think, or do you expect that the world will be as it was before once this crisis passes? And second question, if you want to answer in the chat, and I will ask Priya to tell me. Do you think that there's a mindset that could change after this pandemic? Is there any answer or any comment, Priya?
Yes, so Ranganath says it will be different. I'm hoping others will respond too.
Okay, and Rajana
said very different, and it will change. Yeah, most people are saying that it will change.
Yes, and
things have never been the same and will never be the same.
Change to what? What do you imagine is going to change?
There's some interesting feedback that people are giving in. They're saying that mindset will have to change. We don't know. Things have never been the same and will never be the same. Yes, we take a lot for granted. People will live in the here and now. Virtuality will replace physical. Depends on what is the outcome. We will need to be resilient. Then it will be different with so much more gratitude for what we take for granted. Mindset, ways of working. Our world has changed, but I don't think humans have learned their lesson. This is Ramya is saying this. N.S. Iyer says transformation is in the being.
Yes.
Reshma says everything will be changed. Anu says our attitude to life will change. Anne says one will need to thrive in uncertainty. Rabindra,
Yes.
change in priorities. There's a new world is emerging. Basically, change the beliefs with which we have lived so far. Our arrogance will change. Better appreciation for life, relationship, and that nothing is guaranteed. Puneet says people will value relationships and nature. Ranganath again says we'll have to learn to do with less and live in more discomfort compared to earlier. Sabisati says our relationships will be stronger. Arvind says we will start operating more with the heart. Kanan says human values will become more important. CN says I believe that nature will go as it always has. We will have situations to face again and again. It is just that we need to understand that we take for granted what we take for granted and see things and ourselves differently. Anu says, Anuradha Sen says, start taking care of self and our environment. From Shailendra, we have a message, more respect for nature and other species. Ajit has sent his message. Ajit, you've sent your message privately. It needs to be sent to everyone so that it can be captured, but I'll read it aloud. Basics will remain. Values will become important again. Disruption will be the new normal, says Anne. Reshma says no past experiences will be valid anymore. Gopal says VUCA is happening now. Kanan says impermanence will be permanent. Puneet, simple pleasures of life will be valued. Ajit says relationships values will become more important. Lata says human memory will be short-lived. Change will depend on the intentions we set. Neha says our resilience will get built. And Rakesh says definition of collaboration will change in this environment. N.S. Iyer says transformation begins with I, as in me, I myself. Reshma has said collective consciousness will change.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Look at this.
Such amazing.
Incredible, amazing answers. Amazing answers.
Yeah.
And I want to rescue two things. The first thing is probably something we can observe that changes outside. But what we have the opportunity to change is how we relate to the world. And if we change, we are one that could collaborate in this cultural change that the world needs. The change begins here. There's no change outside. Change is here, is in us, is in I. And when we coach, what we offer into our client is the size of the world that we can perceive. I remember lots of years ago that I was struggling because I wanted to coach CEOs and people that were leaders. I love that word. And I couldn't do it. And I remember that when I went to a conference with one of my great teachers, that is Fernando Flores. And after that, he told me, I want to talk with you. I want to give you feedback or coach you. Can I see you tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock? It will hurt. And I said, what? Yes, it will hurt you. But are you ready to listen to it? And I said, okay. And I went that morning and he again repeated, it will hurt you. And he told me, now I know why you don't reach the place you want. You don't do it because you are not managing your personal power. Personal power is the capacity to choose. And when you say yes to something, you are saying no to all the other things. So somebody that is a leader and that is taking great decisions should manage her or his power. And that was one of the greatest lessons that I had in my life. It really changed my life. And I got what I wanted. But in some moment, those elections made me say yes to something and no to something else that I was avoiding all my life. And when you are ready to stop being loyal to some ways of thinking and some ways of relating, you can change your world and your offer will be bigger. And I am saying loyal because the first thing that a culture asks you for is to be loyal to it. And it's the most primary way of loving. It's like when you get married and you try to live as you lived in the house of your parents, it will not be the same. And in some moments, you have to stop being loyal to that way of living. And they could think that you are not loving them. But if you have cleared the distinction between love and loyalty, you are able to continue loving them, don't create a crisis, and build a new world. So remember this, because if we want to change now, we are going to stop being loyal to some ways of being, some ways of looking at the world, some ways of working, and that's what will change our lives. So this is what we are built for as coaches, and is to invite people to be in uncertainty, because there's the place where we could learn and we could build something new. And it's incredible how coaches, we are always talking about uncertainty, and now that we have the uncertainty in front, we are afraid. So being afraid is normal, but the second thing that is very important is, what are you going to do with your fear? Are you going with your fear to the place where you can learn something new? Or are you going to bring all to what you know? This is the moment for our clients too. This is the moment that I'm having the most interesting conversations with my clients from companies, because I can see their fears and I can see how they are trying to win and to get the money in the same way they did it always. And that is not going to happen, because this game is changed. And the second thing is that probably you know a lot of people that try always to protect, first of all, his or herself. In this moment, there is not possibility of protecting yourself alone. This is a moment where you have to understand that if you protect yourself, you're protecting the other. So this is another big shift. We are getting into an us new paradigm. We are breaking the I. So probably what we have to learn is that we are beginning to enter in a world that is called planetary consciousness. I was thinking this morning, all of you, more than 1,000 million people inside their homes. We are 120 million people in Mexico, and we are also locked at home. We are discovering this new way of relating even with our families, because we are not used to so much intimacy. So is there any question, Priya? Are we going okay?
There's no additional questions. There were some more comments that came in, but no questions as of now. If anybody has a question
Or a comment that gives us place to include something or explain something? No.
all good as of now, Elena. You can continue.
Okay. So I invite you to stay in a position of observers and see what is happening with the governments all around the world. And you will see that they are not synchronized, that each government is doing what they think they have to do, or is their idea, and all of them are running late. They are looking at their country. They think, I think, that the virus needs a passport to go from one side to the other one. So they are closing the frontiers. They are thinking only in this small place that is also a fiction, because if you look at an image of the earth in the space, you will not see countries, but they look as a local perspective. So this takes out power from them. They are not being so powerful. Even more, all the globe institutions as the OMS, no, the health, World Health Organization, is running late. They haven't changed their minds. They can't think globally. So if we want to coach leaders, how is the size of the world that we want to see, to challenge them with our questions, to take them to see a greater world from a powerful position? I am looking at this. I have worked a lot with governments, and I remember some questions. I asked the question, how many years do you want to plan a future for your country? And they said 4 years or 6. Why 4 or 6 years? For a country, 4 years is nothing. And they said, well, that's the time I will be here. So they are confusing power with control. They only think they have power if they have the control. They don't believe in the power of a vision. Yes? And what I'm seeing today, and this is what I want to share first, of showing you what took me to this position and understanding of culture in the world, is that a lot of NGOs already are thinking from a perspective that is the planetary consciousness. So people is changing the perspective. Governments are not changing the perspective yet. So they are getting late, and probably people will begin to believe less in politics and believe more in leaders that are coming from the people. So I took this from a work that I read from Singularity University, because today there's a language that gives us power in a particular area, and that's technology. No? And I found 7 contributions that are performed using technology and are connecting us, are not allowing us to think in countries or in families or in my group or as coaches only. It's this contribution is for all the world. So they are using collective intelligence. And that is the capacity that is enhanced because different groups of people are bringing more information, more ideas, and more insights to solve something. So I took this example of the COVID and did this research. Let's see at this like being curious, learn something about what is the world doing about this, and then we will come to our conversation as coaches. This man is a doctor, a physician. He's called Karam Khan, and he's an American. He finished his mastery in 2004. He did a mastery on infectious diseases and public health, and was the first one that in 2004 thought that the SARS that began in a place will arrive to Miami first, because he began thinking that probably the people that travels by plane are the ones that are making the transportation of the virus or the bacteria. Look at this page. This man said the 31st of December of 2019 that this virus that appeared in Wuhan was going to be in Taipei, in Beijing, in Tokyo, in Bangkok, and in Seoul first, because most of the people of that city were going there. And he created this page where he distributes this knowledge. And look, SARS, Zika, COVID, no? And he studies how the people is moving from one place, so how we bring the sickness with us to other parts of the world. It's a very interesting place, and he's working also with governance. And here you can see it. Here they are working here with governments, with agencies and important associations, because this is the information he captures. He works from here. The page is called Blue Dot. If you want to look at it afterwards, it's very, very interesting. Let's see another page. This other page, this woman that is here, she is an English woman, and she was hired by the BBC. And she's a mathematician, and her specialty is statistics. And what she did was asking to develop an app. And in this app, she went to her small town, a very small town, and asked the people of the town to play a game with her. And I said, let's do this. I get sick with the virus, and I can give the virus to any people that stays with me sometime, or it's very close to me. She did this in 2018. Yes? And she invited the people to use the app. So the people went to a place, got the app, and began to play. Oh, I don't know why it's not available. Let me go again. Okay, I don't know what's happening, but you can look for it. It's in YouTube. And what this woman did is she began to live that day as her day. She went to the pharmacy, she went to buy books, to a library, she went to her office, it began to appear a lot of dots of the people that got the virus that she had. In 3 days, almost all the city was sick. So she could describe that in 2018 when we couldn't think about it. I promise you that this is in YouTube. I will pass this presentation to Priya, and Priya can send it to you, and you can take the link and use it. Yes, because really it's very interesting what this woman did. Let's see another one. This is a real-time monitoring and information page. And it's done through official government data. This is an app used by the Singapore government that said that in a moment like this, public health is more important than privacy. So they know who has fever, and obviously through the GPS, they know the street where this person lives and works, to what hospital that can go, and all the information that is necessary to help the people that has the virus. This is their page. And you can see also, here's countries that have the virus, no? Here is by the country that people come from, no? But here, you can see how the people got the virus. And if you see in a private dinner of a company, they had 47 people that got the virus. And then the religious places, Grace Assembly of God and the Life Church and Missions of Singapore, were the ones that followed in the number of people that got the virus. So here, he offered this. I know that South Korea is using it too. We can discuss now about privacy if you want, but I want to bring this only as, can we see that there's people looking for a different world than the one that we are looking at? Let's see another one. This other place, they began to take the words that the people was using to describe symptoms. And what they do was using all that for what would be related to respiratory problems, fever, locations, potential cases. And then this page that is not working either. I don't know what happened. I promise you that it was working. But what they did was with these words, well, sorry. Let's see if I can copy the link. No, I can't copy it. So I invite you also to see this. This is the social media mining project, using the information that the people described in Facebook, in Instagram, in all the public places. This is one that one of my sons tried to play. These people invent games, and they are scientists. So they put the protein of the COVID-19 there and asked people to play trying to block the protein that gets in contact with the membrane of the lung cells of human beings. So they are looking for, through a play, see if people can design something that could stop the sickness, because the virus cannot enter in the into the cell. No, so this is the game. It looks like this. This is the protein. This is the man that designed the game, and you can enter and play the game. You don't need to be a scientist. Anybody could play. The game is called Try to Block the Protein, the piece of amino acids that allow the virus to get into the lung cells. So it's a very interesting and funny game and a funny way of learning. Well, this is a crowdsourcing idea. And this is Nesta collective intelligence that Bronte just won Giant Lab. They are trying to develop a cheap, quick coronavirus test. And they accept any idea of anybody. So people begin to bring to this page whatever they think that could help in finding a solution for the problem. And let's see. The last one, that is sharing knowledge. So what they are doing here is finding any paper, any idea, any person that is publishing something that could help in finding new treatments. And also the page is here. So they pick up the information, and if you see here what they are doing with this, that it's getting published, is, do you see dots in red, dots in blue, dots in green, and dots in violet? Okay, these are the transformations that the virus have done, and they are showing what place and in what time this transformation happened. So they are helping also in understanding the speed of transformation of this virus. So it's a very, very interesting place. You can see here in a map what we have seen there, no? Like where it began, where did it go, and how it changed, and where, in what place. So these were only examples of people working for all. Let's see what this has to do with coaching, why I brought this to a coaching session. Well, because there's something very interesting that has been studied and published before 1990 by Claire Graves and Don Beck. They developed a model that is called Espiral Dynamics. airwaves with a question to the pupils of the psychology career in the University of New York. And the question was, what is being an adult for you? And he got thousands of answers, all of them very different, but he saw one pattern, that some described adultness as from the I, and some others from the us, from a social point of view. So he began to see that there's a progress in our way of understanding the world, the complexity we use to understand the world. And they call this spiral dynamics. Why and spiral? Because you can go back and forward in any moment, and we all have the most basic ones. So he described this with the name MEMS. And MEMS is the word he found to call culture that is similar to genes. The genes of DNA, yes, that are also in a helicoid. Well, he said that the MEMS are also like in a helicoid. And as we transmit the color of our eyes, the color of our skin through the genes, he can't say that culture comes through the genes. So he used the word MEMS to talk about this, to talk about how we transmit culture. And they call it VMEMS with a V, small v, because that V means values. From what values are you looking at the world? And he discovered that the very first one is survival, doing almost anything or the necessary things to live. This is close to the moment where humankind began in the world through the appearance of language. Then this is the tribal one. This is the one of dictators, kings, people with a lot of power. Then it came something that is more moral, is order. This one is success. This one is beginning to think in community. And here, the green one is the one that gives us the possibility to go to these other ones and divides this spiral in two. This part is about survival, and the upper part is about existence. So these can define us in a personal and in a collective level, not only to the organizations as companies, but also to governments. So let's see now what they bring, each of them. And let's begin, as I told you, the first one is just surviving. Yes, is the beige. It's just surviving. What you need is to stay alive. You have to eat, you have to reproduce, have sexual activity. And if you're ready to die, you can take a position close to the one that you have in the womb of your mother. The second one appeared through a crisis. All of them are created through a crisis. And the crisis was when men discovered that with language, we created a paradigm that broke our sense of belonging, of living all together, of living in cattle, we invented, apparently with a gesture that it was this, is you. But you is the opposite of I. So we discovered the I as I am different than you. And that created the paradigm that we're living in. And saying that also means this is mine. When you say this is my dog or this is my sheep, the sheep and the dog doesn't know that are yours. They don't know they are yours. They love you because you give them food, but they don't think they are yours. That sense of property came with the I. But also, when that happened, we began to be afraid of what we haven't been afraid before. For example, rain, water, mountains, those things that we couldn't control, because control is something we invented just not to be afraid or to manage fear. So they decided to live all together. This is the origin of tribes. And in the tribes, there was always a shaman. And the shaman is the one that is in charge to talk with the gods. They learn from the experience, from what their parents told them. They use to save the images and adore ancestors, respect ancestors. And they try not to do more new things, but to respect the structure of the tribe and the beliefs of the tribe. When this created a crisis? Well, this crisis came when the shaman was not able to manipulate the gods and get what they were wanting. So they decided to create a model where somebody, a person, could have all the power because that person could have something different and could give the people everything that they need. So they created the concept of blue blood. And kings, dictators are standing in this position where they say, I say, how is the word? I satisfy my needs, everything in the same moment, and everybody is here to serve me. They use also to have a lot of people that are loyal to them. But as they are humans, in some moment, they lose the power because they can't give everything that the other ones want. And the other ones are like, well, I'm here while you are giving me. But if you stop giving me, I will go away. And in those moments, the people that live in the red part of the spiral, they say, with everything that I gave you, and you don't love me anymore, what happened? You leave me alone. They think that nobody can think, bring, and create what they are doing. For that, they think that they are the unique ones in the world, and the most they can do is leave a son to continue their work. When this breaks up through a crisis, what appears is something bigger, is the blue part of the spiral, that the way they think is organizations moral organizations are bigger than a person and can last much more than the life of a person. So that was the origin of religions. That was the origin of the armies. That was the origin of democracies, of companies. And they would say something like, if you do what I ask you to do, and you do it well, and you respect the law, you will go to heaven, or you will have work all your life. I think my grandfather, there was an employee in the mail in Argentina, was living there. He began working when he was 16. He got retired when he was 65. And I think that the promise that he had was not having better positions inside the institution. They promised him a salary if he was going every morning and doing what he had to do. And that's what he accepted, and he lived in that world. That is promising you something much longer time before than the other ones. It's not, you don't have something that will happen in an immediate form. So what happened with the blue? The crisis with the blue is something like, okay, so we all have this order and we all know that we will live like in this frame. And if I want more, so that question about I want more gave place to the appearance of this orange part that says, I can do it. I can do almost everything. And I'm sure you know companies that work from there. Goals, results, and everything is possible. And you have to make it. So if you think of this, I think as a coach that we have been used by this part of the spiral, because a lot of coaches are hired to make people get a result. And if we don't know this, we got caught in this conversation that is not a coaching conversation. The real coaching conversation is, I am working for this person getting a wider world and be more powerful. So from his own change in the way he relates to something, he will get better results. By my focus is on the person, and the orange is focused in results. And people love to go to results. I think we are coming from the green, from this part that is collective. Do you know when? This is a very close example. This kind of revolution of the hippies in the 60s, the hippies brought to life the green. They lived in communities. They decided that love was the most important thing in life. And that brought also, I think, the coaching, and brought also the teamwork. So we are coming almost from here. And sometimes we are brought to the orange, lots of times. At least it happened a lot to me, until I decided that I would respect my values, and I don't want to work for a result. I want to work for a person to be greater, to be more powerful, to relate and observe a bigger world. And if a person does that, for sure, they will get better results. And here it is the change between the green that is in the middle, and these are the ones that belong to the existence. We are valuing existence. And what I showed you, I think it belongs to the yellow and to this turquoise rounds of the spiral. The yellow is an integrated women, and they say, live fully and responsible as what you are and want to become. And the turquoise brings this experience to the wholeness of existence through mind and spirits. And when the spiral begins to get up, there's very little people there, but it grows. It grows, it's contagious. And in some moment, if we can begin thinking from here, we will contribute to a different world. And there's one more that they describe the color, but I think it's less than 1% in the word there. And I can't describe it, we can't describe it yet. Is one that is called the fuchsia spiral, part of the spiral, that is after the turquoise. So if I ask you now that you heard this, where are the governments of the world today? In what part of the spiral do you think they are? Are you there, Priya?
Yes, I'm here, Elena.
Okay. In what part of the spiral do you think governments are?
Yeah, let's open it up to everyone. Would anyone like to unmute themselves and respond to that? If you can put your hand up, then I could help unmute you. Okay, Puneet is like to talk. Go ahead, Puneet.
I think somewhere between red and blue, because there is some amount of impulsiveness also we can see, but there is an authoritarian approach also. Depending on the uncertainty, they are oscillating between red and blue.
Yes, Puneet, you are right. The studies show that 70% of the governments of the world are there between red and blue.
Yeah, so what Gopal said, Pal also says that they are struggling between survival to power. And Anne has said that they're absolutistic.
Yes. Mm. And the pages I show you, these are the people coming from NGOs, I think are in the yellow or in the turquoise. So something is changing in the world. But it's not something changing outside. There's people changing the way they relate to what it happens, the way they relate to others, the way they relate to the universe. And this is the moment that we have the possibility of choosing and say, where do I want to be? Where do I feel I am? This is dynamic, so it's not that you are red, no? You are not anything of this. But you can say, well, I think that when I'm at home, I am more blue than any other thing. When I am work, I can be orange, no? But how this could impact our work as coaches? How do we choose to look the world? The companies and our clients. And if we can answer this question, we can ask another question to us, and is, how do I have to design my way of observing not only the world, my moods, if I am committed to making happen this change in the world? If I want to bring my clients
Uh, Elena, yeah. There are a couple of people talking about something interesting, which is a very Indian concept. This Ajit, would you like to unmute yourself and explain what you're talking about?
Yeah, I was looking at the turquoise of the highest level, and I remembered that in Indian thought, we've always been talking of the world as one. The universe, not only the world, but the universe was considered one. And that's why we have a philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We never regarded ourselves with boundaries. We always thought of the universe as one. So
That's
there
this
is,
is
right?
in our scriptures and in our old books, Elena, that's the books that talk about. So therefore, he's trying to explain that, and a couple of other people have also agreed with him on this. What would you say to that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Look, I am astonished and I love it. And you know, we always say in the most common religions in the West, Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, no, that we are one with God. But if we say God, we look to the sky. We can see God inside of us. We can see us as part of God. And it's very interesting. Do you feel that you are really a part of God?
So one observation that I have about this, Elena, my personal thing is that, yes, I may feel that I'm part of God and I believe that God is me and all of that. But I also feel that beyond, there are many who don't or don't project themselves in such a manner. And then you tend to wonder that, is it, for example, such a case that there is a God in everyone? Because how can a certain person be in a certain manner, and how can a certain behavior come up, and then in which case, where is God in that moment? So the question then comes up.
I think this is the work that we must do. This is why we are here.
And in fact, N.S. Iyer has also said the same thing. And even Venkata Diri Ranganathan has said that Vasudeva, if somebody can explain what's the description of Vasudeva, it's a Sanskrit word. And if somebody can explain it in English, it'll be really nice. It's a beautiful concept. But the question is, how many of us actually practice it? If not, it is just a cliche. It's nice to say Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which is a Sanskrit word, phrase.
Priya.
Yeah.
Priya, it's Vasudeva. Vasudha is the earth, right?
Correct.
And
yeah.
it is not Vasudeva, it is Vasudeva.
Okay,
so it's not Vasudeva,
right.
It is Vasudeva.
Right. So Vasudeva is the world. Is that what you're saying?
Vasudeva, not Vasudeva. It is Vasudeva. Vasudeva is the earth.
Right.
Okay. Shripad here. Can I chip in quickly?
Yes, please.
It's Vasudha Eva Kutumbakam. Vasudha is the world. The world itself is our family. Vasudha Eva Kutumbakam.
Absolutely, Shripad. Thank you.
So beautiful. Vasudha Eva. If you can see, it's written here in the text in the chat, Elena.
I ask you to give me because I have all the screen with the presentation.
Yeah.
So write that word.
Yeah, I will send it to you separately as well. So basically saying that the Indian philosophy has always been in the Upanishads about Vasudhaiva or Kutumbakam, wherein, we believe that the world is one big family. We've never believed in boundaries as Indians. But there's also another thought that says that is it just cliche because not everyone believes or practices it?
Yes.
Today's time.
Yeah. And in that cliche that you're saying, I can say that I live in the turquoise. But it's a cliche because I know, and there's a difference between knowing with your mind and experiencing where you live there, all your body there. You feel with your heart, you feel with your guts that you're there. And as you see, we always need a crisis to get up in this complex movement. Yes? And the other thing that I didn't tell you is that this fluctuates from the I to the us. The beige is an I. The purple is an us. The red is I. The blue is us. The orange is I. The green is us. The yellow is I. The turquoise is us. That's the change when we have a crisis. If we really want to learn what we have to learn here. And I think here we have to learn that we live in one world and that we are all tied together, that we are one, that there's no way of saving yourself if you don't save the others. I think this is the moment. So as coaches, we can use this in our coaching and bring consciousness to the world and to our clients. So how do we have to change in our perspectives? How do we have to think? How do we have to feel? What's our mood there? And if all this happens, what actions will appear in the world? I always thought that coaches are bringing a new world with our clients. So this is the moment to be responsible. And probably this is the moment that we as coaches have to embody the crisis and ask ourselves, what do I have to learn? How do I have to go to a more open, inclusive world? And I want to tell you a story, if you allow me.
Yeah, I have some comments to share with you for that. Anu has said that as coaches, we need to have a powerful vision for the world and also the very highest for our clients. Right?
Yes.
Whereas CN has said the concept of being one with the wholeness of existence is something that was understood and preached centuries ago and is so well explained in the Vedantas, that is the Indian texts. So saying that the turquoise holistic nature of existence started 30 years ago shows how as humans we have just lost touch with an understanding of ourself.
Yes.
Of self. And his question is really how this pandemic experience can help us get back to our basics.
Yes, get back to our basics, get back to value our existence and get rid of surviving, get rid of the fears that move the survival mode in this world. Existence is based in gratitude, is based in humility. We are so small and we have such a gift. And we have this gift of being part of something so big. And gratitude, because gratitude is a mood, but it's a mood that, gratitude, at least in the West, when you say thank you for something, you think that you owe present to the other one. You owe something. And gratitude means that you don't owe anything. The only thing that you have to do is to acknowledge that you received something from the other. That's it. Acknowledge. And that creates a very beautiful relationship where you are not less than the other. Gratitude doesn't mean that you are less than the other one that gave you. Gratitude means that you will always remember that somebody or that person gave you something and you took it. It's yours now.
Wow. Edgar from Argentina says that our touch within our body connects us with others and the universe. And Reshma Gulati says, I feel we need to align with the frequency of nature and develop stillness within. Replace fear, the image of fear, and fear with faith and gratitude. We have to replace the image of fear with faith and gratitude. We all need to develop stillness and operate from harmony.
Yeah. And so, how do you will sit next time in front of your client? Imagine a CEO or a manager in a company that is afraid that thinks that can lose his job or her job, that doesn't understand the game, that doesn't know how to work with people that is not in the company.
Would anyone like to answer that? Unmute yourself and please feel free to speak to Elena at this point. Okay, so nobody is volunteering.
Okay, I think that's a very good point. And I thank you that there are no questions, because I think it's okay that there's no question today.
Okay.
But if you stay in the question, in some moment, you will get the answer. And the answer will not come from what you know, probably will come from what you don't know. And it's this change, this new way of relating to what is happening.
Just want to give you a heads up also, Elena, we're at 15 minutes more left for the session. So
I want to tell you this story that I love. That is from Clarissa Pinkola-Estes. I think you know this, of women who run with the wolves. And this story says, I will stop sharing. Can you stop me out here? This story says that this girl wanted to go to the woods. And all the people were saying, don't go out to the woods. It's very perilous. Why not, she said, because there are wolves there. And there's a big wolf who eats humans, such as you. So don't go to the woods. We mean it. But naturally, she was not one of the kind of princesses that we know from the tales, and she decided to go in and went to the woods. And in a moment, she began to listen. The wolf scowling a lot. And she was so afraid that she couldn't listen what was happening in those yells of the wolf. And in a moment, she could pay more attention and listen something like, help me, help me. And the wolf was like crying. So she began to get closer. And she saw the wolf. And the wolf had his hand trapped in a trap. So the wolf told her, can you help me, please take out the trap? And she said, how do I know that you are not going to harm me afterwards? And the wolf said, wrong question. You just have to take my word for it. And the wolf was such in a pain that continued crying. So she said, okay, wolf, I will take the chance. And sprang the trap, and the wolf drew out its paw, and she bound the hand with herbs and grasses. And the wolf said, thank you, maiden, thank you. And because she was so impressed with so many tales about wolves, said, well, oh, go ahead, kill me now, let's finish with this. Well, he said, I am a wolf from another place and time, and this will not come to pass. And plucking a lash of his eye, he gave it to her and said, use this and be wise. From now on, you will know who is good and who is not so good. Just look through my eyes and you will see it clearly. So she went back to her village, happy to still have her life. And at this time, as they said, just stay here and be my bride, or do as I tell you, or say as I want you to say. She held the wolf's eyelash and peered through and saw their motives. And she had never seen it before like that. Next time she went to make some chops for her home, and the butcher weighed the meat, and she looked through her wolf's eyelash and saw that he was wagging his thumb too. And she looked to the suitor who said, I am so good for you. And she saw that her suitor was so good for exactly nothing. And in this way and more, she was saved from not all, but from many misfortunes. She saw who were truly kind and went near to them and found a mate and stayed all the days of her life. She discerned the braves and came close to them. She saw love in the eyes of the shy. And she learned a lesson. And the lesson is that if you don't go to the woods, you will not begin your life. If you don't go to the woods, you will not begin your life. You have to take the risk. You have to go to the unknown. There you will see who you are. Really, probably you will begin seeing the world not from your mind also from your heart, from your guts. And she would also understand some question that the wolf was doing to her, making to her all the time. And because he was in such a pain, she couldn't understand. And this, where is your soul? Where is your soul? So go into the woods, because nothing will ever happen to you and your life will never begin. And if you are there, you will answer the question, where is your soul? Well, Priya, this is what I have to say. And I want to know what they have to say.
Right. There's a couple of comments that came in here. Ramya has said that the concept of oneness has been made real by this pandemic, and action in one part of the world has an effect on another part of the world, and so forth. like a giant moving jigsaw puzzle. It's beautifully put, Ramya. As coaches, Keshav says, as coaches, we have the choice to impact the collective consciousness of the world. The question is, he says, how do we move as a collective post-COVID-19 pandemic?
The question is?
How do we move as a collective post the COVID-19 pandemic?
I don't know a right answer, but I remember this Chinese proverb that says the change begins here. So I decided to move with all of you together. All of you, all the people from America, all the people from Europe. And I decided to feel the grief for the people that is dying, that died a lot in Europe. Is dying in the United States in this moment, is beginning to die here. I always thinking of India because I have a big connection with that place, with your religion, with your way of being. I think you are closer to this. I was eager to share this about spiral dynamics with you because I was thinking that you were going to get it because you are there.
Right. Edgar says that India's culture and spirituality is a huge treasure for humanity.
Yes, absolutely.
And merged with your Latin American passion, open heart.
Look at this.
What is that? Oh, that's Ganesha. Oh, Lord. Okay.
I have it here, desk, close to me. It's always with me. And you know, well, you can teach me this, but I learned that this is the God of the unknown that helps you in jumping to the unknown. No, it's the God of the thresholds. It's like that.
Right. N.S. Iyer has said the power of declaration is the answer. Put oneself to be accountable, he says. And Ranganathan says, excellent session, Elena, for provoking our thoughts and looking beyond nations into humanity. Gopal is saying that there is a book called The Idol of Ganesha. It's a book on leadership. And Arvind is saying that as coaches, we have to be more curious, be more open, co-create, even more psychological safety for our clients. And Puneet has said it's a very interesting concept of spiral dynamics. Anybody has any questions? It would be nice if you can just unmute yourselves, please. It would be, feel free to do that. There's a lot of love coming your way in this insightful session. Thank you, amazing learning, very interesting concept, etc. Gopal says, Ganesha's idol itself is the book. It's like, yeah, he is the beginning of everything, like they say in India. So Ramya has a question that why do you call it the black swan?
Well, I think I can ask Priya, but let me read your mind, Priya, because that was a thought that Priya provoked, calling this black swan. You know that.
Yeah, so in my little knowledge of trying to use my own imagination, the black swan is usually someone is something that we want to keep away. We don't like, but the beauty that emerges from it eventually is phenomenal. It's like the ugly duckling grows into the black swan, and there is beauty in that. I remember as a child studying that story and, in fact, enacting it in a play that I did. But beyond that, please.
Yes, I want to tell you another story of the Black Swan. And it has to do with this kind of events that could change the world and that have these characteristics. You didn't imagine they were going to happen. And when they happen, they are so important that they change the way of thinking, the way of interpreting, the way of relating. As coaches, we can use this word. And this man called this Black Swan because, you know, we always thought that the swans were white. And I think it was in 1870, and a researcher in Australia found a black swan and could see it and said, swans could also be black, not only white. It's not a different bird. It's the same bird in a different color. So when you have an idea or something begins to happen in the world that is very important and that you couldn't imagine before that could happen, that thing will be a black swan event and will change the world. Like, for example, internet. And the person that invented internet did it for the deputy chamber in the United States. Never imagined this would change the world. The phone was another black swan event in the world. And probably this pandemic is a black swan in the world.
Wonderful, Elena. Thank you so much for your insights. This has been wonderful. Really, really appreciate the time that you have taken to share your wisdom with us and your insights with us. There's definitely learning for me personally, and just a sense of awareness of being able to think differently, to be different, not only with myself, but with my clients, and be able to conduct my sessions accordingly. Thank you so much, and a big namaste from India to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Big namaste. We are one, we continue together, and we will do it together.
And like the people said on the group, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and let's actually make that happen. One thing that I'm taking away, guys, from your wisdom that you all shared here, that how can we make this Vasudeva Kutumbakam actually spread across the world, this message that we have known for so many years? How can we do that? Let's think about that.
And you have already the link for the presentation. You can send the presentation to the ones that want it, please.
Thank you so much, Elena. Pleasure. Bye-bye for now. Have a good night, everyone.